I'll keep this short and sweet so we can all go to bed. Um, you know, just wait a few moments. Wait a few moments. All right, we're all good. All right, we're all good. All right. Sorry about that. This is pretty late. Just got caught into conversation, man. And distraction in general. So my apologies for being so late, but I will make it up in terms of how quick we will get through this information. And today we'll just take it slow and really go over the State of the Union speech in general. We'll go through my reaction of it just because I had the timestamps correctly plotted out. So essentially, Trump's State of the Union speech could be split into three parts. And the first part was him laying his achievements. It was meant to be a PR speech, essentially taking all of his achievements. He made a lot of claims. Some are true, some are not. We'll get into that. And essentially laying them out back to back. And this was for about an hour, even over an hour. He just kept making claims, kept making statements. And this was meant to be a speech that inspires hope and joy. And I don't say that because I support, I'm just saying this because this is the purpose of his speech to his constituents and to people who are on the fence. Because, as I said before we even came in here, there are so many things going into the State of the Union. There's the economy, going into people not being hired, the housing crisis, prices of things going up due to inflation. And we'll touch on inflation because he has reduced inflation significantly. He even says he reduced inflation to 1.9, and we'll check that. Supported by official data was 2.6 in both November and December. But essentially, Trump wanted to put out the statement that he was running the country correctly. And I mean, we'll go through this because he says a lot. So we'll start off. I have to do a lot of scrolling because he talks for very extended periods of time. So the economy 4.4216. So we'll just go 4216. This is his inflation claim.
But in 12 months, my administration has driven core inflation down to the lowest level in more than 5 years. And in the last 3 months of 2025, it was down to 1.7%.
Okay. And when I looked this up, it did say fell to 2.6 in November and December 2025. big thing I do want to touch on is the tools that he uses to make his point. And Trump is somebody who likes to he exaggerates almost everything. And I don't want to be quoted on that. I know that's not an academic statement, but we've all seen how he talks. He says, "Oh, the very, very best," saying he almost hypes up everything that seems to be on his side all the time. And Trump is a speaker who likes to use a lot of hyperbole. And, don't quote me on this, but I will say it. And I'm just saying how at least I observe it. Anything Trump says, it's probably not from fact. It just conveys the general gist of a situation. That's Trump's honesty in his version. Because the usual politician might misquote statistics or, use statistics for their own benefit. Of course, who doesn't want to do that? But they may not be completely honest about the situation. Trump, he's honest about the situation in terms of the gist of it. And sometimes he likes to make things sound better than they do. So we'll just go through a bit of these because Trump loves to use applause. I mean, even in this clip, he says something. People stand up to applaud. It's a psychological tool. And you could even analyze the way, what this means. The applause, he takes this, people getting up to applaud him, and he turns it into a tool. So he says, okay, there are people applauding, and there are people who sit down. And usually the people who are sitting down are Democrats because they don't agree with what he's saying because they have complete different ideological perspectives. So he likes to use this because people can clearly see, and he points this out. He likes to make the side that doesn't stand up make them seem as much of the villain as possible in broad terms. So he even said during the speech, if you think the government is meant to support or to serve American citizens over illegal immigrants or not illegal immigrants, well, stand up. And of course, Republicans stood up, and Democrats sat down because the way he phrased it, it's kind of like stuck between a rock and a hard place. And it's that way because, okay, if they stand up, well, yeah, they're saying that the government is meant to support American citizens, but immigration is a very big part of, the Democrats' platform in general. And he said illegal immigrants, but even still, it would make these people lose the moral high ground in perspective to their base. And remember, each base has their own view of what is right and wrong. And, I mean, that's how politics is nowadays. Republicans, their view of right and wrong is, just on a few issues, the American citizen, saying that we should support the citizen. We shouldn't be giving money, handing money out to people who don't serve this country and who aren't citizens. And that's just a broad perspective. And they'll use that high ground. They'll say, okay, well, we support Americans. We're for the actual Americans. We are here for you, the working class citizen. And we're not going to compromise you. We're not going to sell you out for the illegal alien. That's their perspective. That's their moral high ground. That's just them serving their base. But on the Democrat side, well, yes, they care about the citizen, but they also care about things like the sharing of resources, helping everybody out, making sure everybody succeeds, making sure that people aren't put in a compromising situation. Like some of these illegal immigrants are, they're in a foreign country and now they have to be deported. Democrats play to this, and they take their moral high ground by saying, well, we care about everybody. We care about every human being. And it ties back even further back to people like Adolf Hitler. Adolf Hitler, and I'm not saying nobody in Congress is like Adolf Hitler or is even close to him. That's not a claim I'm making. But what I am making is that is a tool that is going to be used, because Adolf Hitler, he took a political stance that was essentially pro-citizen in the general sense, saying, hey, we care about the German citizen, the national identity of Germany, and they deported people, they killed people, and they fought for that. Democrats kind of play off of the sore wound caused by like authoritarian regimes, such as the Nazi regime, and essentially tied to the Republicans, not calling them Nazis in most cases. Sometimes you'll have name calling, and it's definitely there where people are basically called Nazis, but they're really not, But they don't say this overtly, but the illusion is very clearly there. Well, we don't want to go down that rhetoric because that can lead to some ego, pride, superiority thing, and people get hurt from that. They do play to that, and people are worried about making that mistake. It's a very big thing. Here I am saying I'm not gonna waste your time, and I'm 6 minutes in. Just not even moving on. But so we'll start off with the economy, and he says, boom, inflation is down. All right, that's not entirely true. He kind of omits year over year. He says last 3 months of 2025 specifically, but that's not exactly the case. And also, just for your information, because he could be getting different numbers than the numbers that I'm looking up. Different people can track inflation. The government tracks inflation, but they're not the only group of people that do track inflation. There are third-party institutions that do track like government statistics, and this is federal data from the U.S. Bureau of Labor Statistics. So, if you feel like you trust the government more on this, be my guest. But even if it's 2.6, even like it was at 3.2 when Trump first came into office. 2.6, even though he exaggerates it, this is still not bad in terms of, the Federal Reserve. In terms of, keeping, not letting the value of the dollar just completely vanish, but, still keeping, modest economic growth in general. Because if your economy is going to grow, you're going to see inflation. Just saying. But we'll go on another economic lane. So, man, he even says this with oil. Oh yeah, gas is down, and this is true. Now, I'm not sure about these specific claims, like gas being $2.30 under $2.30 nationally, and on as of recently, it's above that. I don't know why, but even before February, gas prices have been low. They have been very low. And because I live in Louisiana, and now gas is like $2.70, but until January it was like $2.30 to $2.40, sometimes even in the ones, depending on the gas station you went to. And he says, it's $1.85 in Iowa. And then he says mortgage costs are down $5K. Now, in theory, like this would be. Oh, also oil. Before I even move on, oil is a very big deal. I mean, the drill baby drill thing. Trump is very big on oil, and even the political moves, like for example with Venezuela, he's making this major drive to get oil to be very cheap, because obviously oil is critical to the success of the United States economy. All the way that most American cities are built with highways and roads, it's car-centric. And people, on average, need to drive. I'll look it up right now. Now, I'm not trying to ad-lib here, but this is very important. Average drive to work in America. The average United States commute is 26 minutes one way to work. You don't understand how insane that is. Average distance, Americans drive about 16 miles one way to work. So this is just work in general. But we're not even counting the transportation costs for truckers. All the goods that we have go across the country, even the cost to produce certain goods like plastics, things that we even use. If you lower the price of oil, everything else goes down. And this is, it's obvious, at this point. So Trump saying this, it does mean a lot to people, because oil is a thing that, no matter how much it costs, you still need it. And by making it cheap, that's the most direct way to make people's lives easier. And that's Trump's approach. Trump is a president that likes to appeal to making the average daily life cheaper. Mortgage costs down $5K. And I already put it in here. So, let's see. Well, I'm not really seeing much on those claims. I see CNBC saying something like mortgage rates dropping below 6%, meaning that the interest rate that you pay on your mortgage goes down, which of course, it's in line with Trump's. Trump also has been pushing to get the interest rate down. And of course, if this happens, it means you're going to stimulate more growth in the economy. Because it's easier. Okay, let me go back just to make sure people understand this. So if you make the interest rates are controlled by the National Bank of the United States, or the Federal Reserve. So essentially, the government can lend out money, and they can set at which rates they want to lend out money to people and to other banks. So if they lend it at a high interest rate, meaning that people have to pay back more money over time and making borrowing riskier, then people are going to be more conservative with their money and are going to spend less, and it's going to cool the economy down. And this is when you think the economy might be running too hot, and to be more specific, meaning that like the prices of things are being overvalued and you think there's going to be a huge crash. And if you want to lower the interest rates, that means that you're making borrowing easier and less risky, and you have to pay less money back. So you can make more investments and circulate the money more throughout the economy. And that speeds the economy up. The U.S., and I'll keep this short because I don't want to go too deep. I'm trying to cover everything. But essentially, the economy of the United States is commanded by the Federal Reserve in terms of investments. I mean, think about it. Everything, every market, even your savings, like when you have a 401k and you put this money into a saving account and your employer matches it, that's an investment into the United States economy. Investment fuels this country. Speculation fuels this country. So yeah. So if it's stock market all time highs, that's true. And this is true, but it has to be taken with a caveat. Let me just verify that one more time. But I'm pretty sure it's true. Trump's stock market claims are true but often misleading. He currently noted that the Dow Jones Industrial Average passed 50,000 and S&P hit 7,000, setting new records. The S&P rose about 14-15% since the second term. The market did set around 52, 53 all-time highs. However, the stock market performed much better. Many foreign markets outperformed. Okay. Well, even the AI is low key. I'll just go over this. So, yeah. Stock markets have hit all-time highs. And it is misleading the way he frames that because stock markets are pretty much designed, like there's so much money into it, they're designed to continually go up and up and up in value in general. Like usually if a stock market goes down, it's because of a major crash. And yeah, I mean, that's true. So, and I'll have to look into this Japan's Nikkei because it's mentioning this other stuff. I'll just say this because I'm probably going to have to come back to this because I feel like this might be a little biased, just a hunch. But yeah, that's true. Yeah, it's misleading. 18 trillion in investment. Now I do have this one preloaded because this is probably one of the most insane claims he made. Boom. So it's not 18 million. He's counting, I think, trade deals and the money we've gotten from like trade. Let's see. Additionally, items like product purchases and trade deals are counted as quote unquote investments. So the number without that is probably around 9.6 trillion. And then the pledging to give investment in the UAE, pledging 1.4 trillion and 1.2 million from Qatar. In UAE, GDP is 500, and so they're pledging the amount of money nearly 3 times the size of their economy. And Qatar is probably even smaller. I'll look it up. 240 million. So Qatar is pledging something almost 6 times the size of their economy, not even their tax revenue, nothing. It's their economy. So that has to be taken with a grain of salt. But credit where credit is due. I mean, a lot of these things are from AI because Trump is hoping that AI causes, deflationary growth, and we'll get into this later on, because I don't have enough time. But Trump hopes that AI is going to bring more growth to the United States economy. So the government and AI companies are kind of coordinating. That's why you even see him with meetings after he got elected. He had the whole leaders of the tech industry right next to him because tech is his way to essentially cause more growth in the United States economy. So a lot of these things are like AI investments in the data centers. And then you have, after the tariffs, he managed to get the Taiwan Semiconductor Company to make a factory in the United States, which is a pretty big deal. And yeah, so it's not 18 trillion. And 70,000 new construction jobs. So before I even analyze if that's true, what it means and its actual value, I mean, it's not really, like, I'll say this. He says also that these are all private jobs too, saying that they're not government jobs. But keep in mind, the government has made large. Trump is like a deal maker. So he has made large investments in tandem with companies to encourage the growth of the company. And of course, the companies are going to hire more people because they're trying to make a larger profit. But anyways, so fact that checking says the construction industry added only 14,000 to meet new jobs in all of 2025. Making the claim of 70,000 in a short time inconsistent with reported trends. This assessment is echoed in a Morley Fool that labels the 70,000 jobs as fiction. Broader job trends. Other data shows modest growth, 19,000 construction jobs added in 2025, and ongoing labor shortages with 292 job openings. So that's interesting. There's a labor shortage, which is meaning that for some reason there aren't people, like there are people who, like they need people, but there aren't people who are working in that specific area. So oil production up to 600,000 barrels a day. And of course, this is going to be in line with his energy thing, his energy policy in terms of drilling and bringing oil down. This is pretty big. Crude oil production, U.S. crude oil production averaged 12.9 million barrels per day and rising to 13.2 in 2024. And boom. So it's true. All right. 100% of jobs created in the private sector. I already addressed that. 2.4 million lifted off of food stamps. Now we have got to check that one. Okay, so the Big Beautiful Act essentially cut funding from SNAP, and he just said, "Yeah, we lifted 2.4 million Americans from food stamps, and they were pretty much kicked out of it." To be more accurate, instead of just being lifted out of poverty. So, border and immigration. So after 4 years, we now have, I'll let Trump say it himself to introduce this next topic. So 39.56.
After 4 years in which millions and millions of illegal aliens poured across our borders totally unvetted and unchecked, we now have the strongest and most secure border in American history by far.
Okay. So, him saying that we are now the strongest and most secure border in American history. And that's just a framing statement. So, let's see what's the supporting claims. First one is 0 illegal immigrants admitted in 9 months. So, this statement was based on Department of Homeland Security indicating that no immigrants without legal status were released on parole between May of 2025 and January 2026. However, admitted technically refers to legal entry. And individuals technically refers, okay, so technically being admitted means that you had to come legally if you were admitted. And if individuals without legal status can't be admitted because they're illegal. So, while no parole releases occurred, the claim is semantically misleading because administration and parole release are different legal processes. And matter of fact, man, I want to apologize to you guys right now. Because, man, just me yapping and look at what happened before I even look into this. I want to apologize because I said earlier in the stream that Trump comes across, like he comes across as honest, even though he likes to exaggerate things. But honestly, Trump is like everybody else. He twists data, uses semantics to get power. I mean, that's the truth. And he comes across as honest. That was his gist in 2016. But at this point in 2025, I mean, the gloves are off. And now, I mean, we're just saying anything at this point. But yeah, I was wrong on that. He essentially misframed it on purpose. Fentanyl down 56%. So, okay, this is saying 2023. October. There aren't much recent people pointing that out as a fact check. So I'm gonna guess, for the sake of speed, if they didn't challenge it, I mean, we know fentanyl went down. We can assume. I'm not going to say I know. I'm not going to say I know anymore. We can assume that fentanyl went down due to all the precautions and like measures Trump has taken in regards to the border and deportation and like counter operations against cartels and what he did against Venezuela. Okay. And then he says largest murder rate decline in history. Now this one is I'm gonna try to get this one. So yeah, the largest single year decline in U.S. murder rate in recorded history occurred in 2025, with homicides falling by 21% compared to 2024. So, people, Democrats and Republicans, well, I'll say this. So, when he was sending troops, National Guard troops, into cities, there was a lot of like statements from Democrats saying, crime has been going down since 2023 already. So why are you sending the troops in? You don't have cause, because crime has already been going down. But if you look into it, the FBI changed how they reported crime, and the gap in the data basically allowed for the data to look like, oh, look, crime is going down. Another thing, Trump kind of with these like city takeovers and all that. I mean, let's be honest. I'll say this because, this isn't being analytical, but hypothetically, somebody who usually commits crime, if they see a National Guard soldier, they're less likely to commit a crime. And if you look at the crime statistics when Trump was doing the National Guard takeover, crime did go down. But that is at the cost of stability. And when Trump did those crackdowns, that brought about a lot of political instability, and Democrats took advantage and tried to like play this against him in terms of like, oh, look at Trump, he's just sending troops in there, trying to amplify the already out there image because of what he did with ICE. The image of, oh, Trump is a militant president, he's going to strip your rights away, things like rhetoric like this. But yeah, we'll speed through the rest of these because foreign policy, we received more than 80 billion barrels of oil from Venezuela. This, according to the data so far, is false. What the data does say is that 30 million barrels of oil have only been recorded to be exported from Venezuela since the regime change. So, you got to put time frame. That's the thing, Trump leaves a lot to the imagination. Now, that's another claim I'm gonna make, but I'm sure that won't come back to bite me later on because, man, this guy. Are we into DEI in America? I won't even dive into that. That's a culture war thing. And patriotic rally energy. So he had this, oh yeah, man, look at the gas prices, look at healthcare, look at all these things. It's essentially his chance to respond to the political rhetoric against him from Democrats. Because, they're talking about the economy, rising prices, and consumer inflation, which means although the money may be valued around the same, the prices of things are still going up because of tariffs. So, Democrats, through the media, have, very much organized people like, hey, we got to fight back against what he's doing with ICE, the National Guard, and the economy, and cause more friction and increase the political damage from every action that Trump does. That's what they did during his first term, And, right now Trump has the Senate. He has the majority. He has the ability to do what he wants. But when the midterms come, that's when the Democrats are able to kind of shut him down, to limit his power. And that's what they're doing now. They're trying their best. And this is a political game. I'm not taking any sides. This is a political move. The media will do their best to start movements to make what Trump is doing look as bad as possible and eventually political incidents will occur. So, yeah, Trump says this is the golden age of America. So Trump says all these claims. Then he says this is the golden age of America. Starts handing out medals. He brought in the Olympic team. He brought in a guy who was a part of the Venezuela operation, who was the helicopter pilot. He brings in all these people because he's trying to build national pride and a sense of achievement. What he didn't address, I don't think he didn't address my credit card interest rate cap. I don't remember that. So yeah, and then we continue on into the foreign policy, and I think, okay, foreign policy, 41 minutes already. Foreign policy. Let me just scroll down here. So, tax cuts expansion. So I mean, he claimed no tax on tips, overtime, and Social Security. This is true. This is part of the bill that he passed. And Social Security, it's just like less tax for older people. Then he brought up the Trump accounts, and he likes to say, "Oh, I didn't name it. I didn't name it. Look, they just called it. They just wanted to thank me." But essentially, these accounts where they deposit like $1,000 in your newborn baby's account, and then it grows through investments. By the time they are 18, they can just withdraw it. So then you have tariffs, and he kind of challenged the Supreme Court tariff thing. And the craziest thing, matter of fact, I'll play it. 1709.
That almost all day, right, Scott, make a new deal and successful path that we had negotiated. So despite the disappointment, our country of the wars will remain in place under fully approved and tested alternative legal statutes. Probably better. And as time in the past, the tariffs paid for by foreign countries will, like in the past, substantially replace the modern day system of income tax, taking a great financial burden off the people that I love.
Okay. So boom. Him saying that tariffs could replace income tax. And what this means in terms of how his appearance is, his image, Trump is already seen as this guy, even during the 2020 election in 2024, compared to Kamala Harris, compared to Joe Biden, he was already seen as a guy that was going to make average life easier for Americans through cheaper gas, lower inflation, things like this. He's already seen as this guy. Oh, he's going to reduce the tax as well. Wait, I already said that, didn't I? But he's already seen as this type of president that's going to make money easier to get. And him saying, oh, tariffs could replace income tax. I mean, wow. That's a pretty bold claim. And I'm not sure if that's going to be feasible within the 4 years that he's been in office. Maybe he said, it could alleviate the national budget. Well, I think that could work. I mean, if you look at the stats, the United States is the largest consumer, and I'll pull up data behind this. The U.S., the largest consumer market. In the world. And we already know it's the United States, but I'll just look it up just to prove my point. And the gap. So the United States, with household financial expenditure reaching a cumulative like $19.8 trillion. This represents approximately 30% of global consumer spending, despite the U.S. population making only about 4%, 4.2% of the world's total population. So, I mean, there are countries that do want to do business with the United States, and a lot of times they just end up passing the cost on to the consumer, anyways. So, Trump is trying to strengthen the domestic market, and he's also trying to take advantage of the United States' global position. Now, we've already seen the political blowbacks, not only from Democrats, but internationally. How the type of wedges and relationships that it creates with France, Britain, other allied countries. But at the end of the day, from Trump's perspective, he thinks, well, I can lower taxes, I can look better in the eyes of the people because I can say I lowered taxes by this much without going into debt. And then he could say, well, foreign countries are paying for it, and he strengthened the domestic economy. I mean, that if he frames it that way, people won't be so opposed. So, healthcare overhaul. Yeah, I'm gonna have to cut it early because it's getting late. We might do another part 2, but just to cut through the big things. Fraud. So just policy wise, banning on investment firms buying homes. So, and let me see. He does mention Iran. So Iran, he says that, of course, the United States obliterated Iran's nuclear program. He says Iran is still rebuilding despite this. He says he prefers diplomacy, but he won't allow a nuclear weapon to happen, to be constructed, no matter what. So this clearly means Trump will take action if Iran doesn't comply with the United States. And let's say this, Iran domestically is not in a good spot. There have been protests. Trump claims 32,000 have been killed so far. The numbers I got were around 12,000. And the numbers I have also showing that, I'll just look it up again. Deaths from Iran protests. Because we did this last stream, but I want to bring this up again. I think it's higher. So, Iran International reported that 36,000 may have been killed. This is insane. And how many people are protesting in Iran? Boom. I think it's around 9 million, but let's see. An estimated 1.5 million took to the streets in Tehran alone. That's the capital city. And then 5 million nationwide. So, and it's ongoing. It's been going from, it says here, December 2025, December 28th, 2025, all the way to now, and they divided it into 2 phases. There Iranian people are already being provided with uncensored military access. I'll come back with evidence on the next stream on that. And on top of that, they're clearly not happy with our government, at least from what I've been seeing. So, also, Iran can't just pull a Venezuela on Iran, saying, "Oh, just strike the leader and it'll all be over," because it's far from being that simple. And we definitely can't put boots on the ground because Iran, let me see. Iran, for one, has a more advanced military than Iraq. But of course, that's because of the time difference, military difference. So 610 active personnel. They don't have a larger, but they have 610 active personnel. And when I reference Iraq, I mean during the first Iraq invasion. But essentially, Iran now is taking some of Iraq's peak military activity during the modern era, and add that with foreign aid from Russia and China, and then you combine that because Iran has very mountainous terrain. And trust me, terrain makes things a lot harder for anybody, especially if you're fighting an insurgency. But anyways, Iran has a very mountainous terrain like that of Afghanistan. So you can't put boots on the ground. That's out of the question. And you can't just outright strike the leader of Iran because the Iranian political system is more advanced than what it is in Venezuela. In Venezuela, it's more of this guy, he's in power, and when you take him out of power, the generals are questioning, okay, should I retaliate or should I not? And it's the United States of America. So if you're going to fight for this person, it's usually going to be out of real national identity instead of, logical, because it's the United States of America. Iran, though, if somebody killed the leader of Iran now, they could have somebody up after that. Like, they're not going to be left confused like, what? They're going to have somebody come up behind him, and their political momentum in terms of, like, the choices Iran is going to make is going to be the same. Because they're a religious government. They have this view of the United States because we've aided Israel so much through the years that, we're kind of like the devil. And that's not very analytical, but that's just to put it in broad terms. Iran has a grand strategy of being allied with the Eastern blocs of the world. That's just the way it is. Killing the leader won't promote the same change in Venezuela because you still have the IRGC. And the military in Iran is more so tailored for the dictator and to have loyalty towards the leader. So it's going to be a very complicated situation. And I mean, I couldn't even have enough information on how things are laid out to propose how they could even theoretically pull this off. So, yeah, I'll just leave it off here. We'll continue the rest tomorrow. This stream went on way longer than I intended for it to, for 54 minutes. I ended up rambling. But, yeah, it's just nice to go over it because there are things that I did want to address that I didn't get to address live because it's like if I pause, it's crazy. Trump said so much, and I didn't want to pause because I was like, if I pause, I'm going to miss something important that he's going to say. And like when he does say something, I mean, he just says so much. He says so much, it's kind of hard to keep track of live. But, I do my best. And, yeah, thank you for tuning into the stream. Don't believe everything you see or hear even if it's from me, check it for yourselves if you feel like doing that. But a simple search would go a long way, and it will really educate you. And yeah, I hope you forgive me for even some of the things that I've said that I'm realizing like I was wrong for saying that as I'm going through the stream and I'm reading through these things. But thank you for watching the stream. Have a good day. Stay educated and hit the like button.